All right, guys, it's your meat episode of the week, and I am excited to have you here, and this is a good one. You guys are going to really enjoy this conversation. Before we get too far, let's read our scripture of the week, okay? So we're in 1 John. So 1 John chapter 4, we're going to be looking at two verses, 7 and 8. It says, "Beloved, let's love one another, for love is from God, and everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. The one who does not love does not know God, because God is love." So guys, love that scripture. Go back, check out the spiritual kickoff. I really unpacked that, gave you some insights and things to think about. Because I'll tell you what, guys, it's so important just to have God's word and not just to hear it, as we need to actually apply it and take it into our life and understand how we can take this beautiful thing called God's word and start walking it out. So I'm so excited to have that scripture for you guys this week. And I'm pretty pumped up, as you can tell. I'm pumped up for this one because I have on the show today Dr. John Delony. Some of you guys may know him. So he works over at Ramsey Solutions. He works with Dave himself. He's one of the personalities. He has a wonderful podcast. My wife loves it. By the way, he gives a shout out to her, so you guys are going to hear that as well. But Dr. John Delony, he had his bachelor's of arts in humanities and psychology at Lubbock Christian University and his master's of education in higher education administration from Texas Tech. He went on. He didn't stop there. No, he went on. He's an overachiever. I get it. Got 2 PhDs from Texas Tech, one in counselor education and supervision, and the other in higher education and administration. So, guys, I'm telling you what, Dr. John, he talks about so many things on his show. He brings so much wisdom and insight. We talk a lot here today on anxiety, on what that looks like, around the stories that we tell ourselves, the power that we have as Christian men with the words that we say, how we can actually use that for good or bad in our relationships at home with our kids, with our wives. And guys, he just talk about the things we do wrong. Dr. Delony, he gives us insight to ways to we can actually implement to make a positive improvement. So that's what I'm most excited about. I'm telling you, this is an incredible conversation. It's full of facts that will guarantee are going to help you in your walk. So I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did. So sit back. Dr. John Delony is a ton of fun. You're going to be chuckling some. He's going to have you thinking. But I guarantee you, if you just take the time to listen and apply what some of the areas that he talks about, it's going to make a big impact in your personal journey and for those that are around you. So enjoy this conversation with Dr. John Delony. So, John, welcome to The Lion Within Us. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm great, Chris. Thank you for having me on, man. It means the world to me. Thank you.
Well, it's an honor. I tell you, I'm a little nervous. I'm going to tell you why. You're not going to believe this one. So my wife, big time fan, she listens every day, and she never says anything about the guest, John. But today she's like, "Don't screw it up. Don't screw this one up." I'm like, "Okay, thank you. So please give Rebecca a shout out if you don't mind."
Rebecca, thank you for keeping Chris in line. And I'm glad my show's full of knuckleheaded husbands, so I'm glad that you're able to keep him in line there.
And that's what she
doesn't weaponize
says.
Me, does she? Does she come home and say, "Well, John said that"? All right,
bro. Do you know how many times I've heard John says this? I'm like, well, this is great. Maybe we need to try this.
Rebecca, don't do that. You're going to get me in trouble.
No, it's all good. This has been great stuff that's helped our marriage, man. So seriously, this is good stuff. So I'm excited, and she definitely is. So, man, give us a fun fact about you, Dr. John Delony, that maybe not many people know. So just before we get digging into, so what's just something fun about you, man?
I have 10 chickens, and they are laying eggs like you wouldn't believe. And so we are basically bajillionaires at the Delony house this season. We have more eggs. They're coming out our ears, man. And so my son started selling them. But we're a chicken family, and we love it. We love it.
I love it, man. We got 3 ourselves, and my girls are getting ready. They're investigating raising quail for the quail eggs.
Ooh,
so
yeah.
we'll see how that goes, man. But yeah, that's fun stuff right there, man.
Love it, man.
Absolutely love it. So thank you so much. By the way, your book, Own Your Past, Change Your Future. Love this book. I definitely want to unpack a little bit of it. And I was talking with your assistants about what we could talk about. And one of the things I know you're pretty open about, and I am too, which I'm sure you don't know about my struggle, but I've had anxiety in my past as well. It's something that raises its head from time to time. And I know a lot of our listeners at the line within us deal with it because, I mean, we're dealing with Christian men who are trying to be leaders, and anxiety is just something that, man, let's just face it, it's out there. So, why do you choose to talk about this stuff instead of just hiding it, right? 'Cause so many guys, we just hide behind this facade of like, I'm fine. But I love how you just embrace it and talk about it because, I mean, that's the only way we're going to get better.
Oh, man. I think I just got to a point where I was tired of looking at the men that I was privileged to be behind closed doors with that were 10 or 15 years ahead of me, just watching their lives melt underneath them. And realizing I'm on that same exact path, and it's just like being in a slow motion car crash, except I have the opportunity to turn, and I just couldn't see a reason why I would continue on in that track when I see where we're all going to end up, and we're all going to, meaning my family, my friends, my community, my local church that I'm a part of, we're all going to end up right in that huge pile. And then as I started pulling the string on that, I realized the way we're talking about anxiety and mental health is sideways. I mean, look, man, more people are in counseling under the care of a professional mental health professional than ever before in human history. More people are medicated right now for psychiatric mental health issues than ever before in human history. And I'm going to a counselor tomorrow. I got an appointment on my calendar, and I've taken meds before and they really help. So I'm not against those things. But we have to look at what we're doing is not stopping the problem. In fact, the trend line for anxiety and depression, all these issues, is almost entirely vertical. We're not helping. We're not putting a dent in it. And so whenever I see a problem that I tell my 12-year-old, I got a 12-year-old little boy, sometimes he'll try to open the door and it's stuck. And his first 12-year-old impulse is just to rip and pull harder. And now sometimes I'll say, hey, stop. See what's blocking the door. And as a culture, we act like a bunch of 12-year-olds, and we just think, all right, if we're going this fast and we're all crashing, probably the solution is just go faster. And man, we're just making the pile of bodies and cars bigger and bigger and bigger, man. And I just can't watch it happen anymore. So I decided to start talking.
Well, man, I'm so glad you did. I'm curious for your standpoint too. I mean, we definitely serve Christian men. And we talk a lot about the things that are talked about in the church, but also more importantly, we talk about the things that are not talked about in the church. And this is one that I just don't think it's talked about at all, right? I mean, we don't hear many sermons talking about how. Go ahead.
We do talk about it. And what we tell people from the pulpit is, hey, the Bible says y'all should not have anxiety or worry about anything. And so if you are anxious, if you are worried, it's your fault. It's your problem to fix. And here's the context that the church, because complete, and dude, I've been going to church my whole life, and I'm pretty critical. It's kind of like I could talk about my dad, but nobody else can, right? So that's the way. It's my family. Right. When the church was taking care of the poor, and when the church is taking care of the widows, and when the church was a hospital, right, where people came and said, "I'm not okay," and the church said, "We got you." When it was that, they were helping people create non-anxious lives where they weren't starving and they weren't worried about their bills and they weren't up to their eyeballs in debt because they didn't know how money works. They didn't understand what was going on. You had churches teaching people how to do Christian life. And then you could say, those of you who are wearing anxiety and worry as an identity, and we all know those people. I was that guy. Like, I've got anxiety, so I can't be on time. I've got anxiety, so I can't treat you with respect. That's all nonsense. But instead, the church has slowly, over the last 25, 35, 45, 50 years, become they become very like an arm of a particular political party, or they just get up there and repeat the same 3 verses and smoking lasers and then send everybody home feeling good with donuts and coffee. And we have a generation of people that don't know how to do life. We don't know how to be married. We don't know how to raise kids. We don't know how to function. And so we're just angry and frustrated all the time. And then we got someone up on the pulpit up on stage telling us quit worrying. Jesus says, don't worry. He says that in a context, right? After he is teaching people how to do life right. And so I think we've created a world where we can't talk about it. And then we've got a greater cultural message that the church is just inhaling like it's an old cigarette. Either one of two things. You've got the path forward, which is we're all feelings. Everything's about feelings, and whatever you feel is your truth. And it's choose your own adventure. You make it up as you go, which is nonsense. And then you got the other side of it, which is if you have feelings, you're a coward and you're wimp. Suck it up and just keep grinding it and go about your day. And both of those narratives are false. They're both wrong, and they're both wiping us out. And so I think there's a great moment in history right now for the church to take up the new third path, which is here's feelings. We're going to teach you how to talk about them. We're going to accept them, and we're going to teach you how to make the next right choice, because our feelings often lie to us. They are important signals, but they often tell us wrong directions. And we're going to have a group of men and women who rally around you to say, hey, here's the next best choice. Here's the next best decision, not to weaponize it, not to get power over you, but to help you live a better life, right? And I think we miss that message a lot.
Well, I mean, and to your point there, I mean, you have two extremes in the church in general. You have the fully love churches and the fully true churches too. You got, 100% love. That's the prosperity gospel. And you have the 100% truth churches who you can't do anything right. A lot of times they're preaching the poverty gospel, and both of them completely missed the mark. I mean, but to your point that you started off with, how do we get away from it's a hospital? Many times now it feels like a country club, bro. I don't know about your churches, but that's what it feels like, right?
It's 100%. And I mean, it just adopted the business language from executive positions to strategic plans to giving campaigns. That's all business literature and nonprofit. I mean, that's all nonprofit language. That's how we talked at the universities I worked at, right? And they've just been adopted for this idea of growth and this idea of we're going to count how our kingdom work is going by how many butts we have in our seat. It's just, and again, I don't believe anybody set out to be nefarious here. I think it worked in my business. It works in my leadership roles here. Of course it's going to work here. And here's a way to measure this. And we're trying to do right. I get all that. But I think we've missed the mark when it comes. It's hard pressed for anybody to go back and just start with the Gospel of Matthew and to read those first 4 books of the New Testament and think we pretty much got that down. We're not doing that anymore. Right. We've gotten sideways.
We have, man. And a lot of times we pick and choose. That's why, you see these Bible verses on coffee cups and things like that. We have no context to really what it's actually telling us. It sounds good. So let's just go with that. It feels good for today. So we're just going to wear that today. We don't want to worry about the hard stuff. Like that's old stuff. That doesn't apply to today, man. It's such, to me, like, bro, it's either you're all in or you're not. Like, it's just not pick and choose Jesus here.
That's right. Right. And all in looks differently than I think we've than maybe even my granddad knew all in meant, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. Absolutely.
Well, man, I appreciate you taking me down that little detour there, but I want to talk about the stories, because when I read your book, and definitely, guys, you got to go pick this one up. It'll be in the show notes. Go get a copy, because you talk about stories are the problems and the solution. And we need to understand that. So I love how you start off with owning the stories and understanding what they are. Man, just can you unpack that a little bit on why that is so important to start with that step of ownership?
Yeah, we all have stories that we were born into that we didn't even know. It was just the air we breathed. It was the water that came out of our faucet. And when I say that, I'm talking about you just grew up in a household that took you to church. You believed in God. You went to a church, you went to a community that your parents understood God was your best friend, and he has your best interest in heart, and he wants the best for you. Jeremiah, we're just going to repeat that over and over again. It's on every pillow in the house. And, or you grew up in a house where God was just watching you, man. And if you screw up, he is going to grit his teeth and smile and send you to an eternity of torture and burn. And he can't wait because he's a God of justice, right? That's just the house you grew up in. Or you grew up in a house with no church, and on Sunday mornings we have pancakes and get together as a family and we laugh and we play games. Or you grew up and dad's just not there. That's a story you were born into. No one said anything. It just was, right? And that became your filter. That became your glasses with which you saw the world. That became your reality. And if you're wearing sunglasses all the time, it can look like the world's just kind of a dark place. And if you're wearing really bright, clear glasses all the time, it can feel like the sun's always shining, even when it's cloudy out. So there's these stories we're born into, and then there's the stories we were told. The stories like you are always going to be a whiny little brat, or you're my pudgy little girl. You're the pudgy one, or golly, you're huge, or this is my clumsy kid, or this is the kid that always gets straight A's. He's my smart one. And these are the stories you're told. And what we're finding out with neuroscience, that these stories have a physiological consequence. They change your brain chemistry. They enact certain genes, and they depress other genes. They alter how you experience the world. And so I grew up in a house. My parents lived the message, and they told me, you can do anything. There is not a thing you can't do. And so when I waltzed in and thought I'd just be a college president, it never occurred to me that I wouldn't be, right? It never occurred to me I wouldn't be an executive leader at a billion-dollar university. That thought never popped into my head. In fact, when I applied for jobs and didn't get them, I thought it was because they were stupid, right? It never occurred to me I couldn't do that. Whenever I finally had my dream job. And then I just quit a couple years into it to become a YouTuber and a podcaster with Dave Ramsey, right? It never occurred to me that was a pretty reckless, stupid idea, right? Because I just figured it's going to work out. All of that is because I had parents and coaches and Sunday school teachers who continued to pour into me, even when I screwed up, and said, hey, you can do anything. And there's big responsibilities with this love, right? So that's a story. And then I've got friends of mine who were told since they were 4 that they were a burden, they were annoying, they need to get out of the way, they need to shut their mouth, they were always going to be ugly, their teeth are always going to be wonky, whatever stories they were told. And then all of a sudden they're 30 and 40 and they're wondering why they're 6 inches away from their wife, but they're 6,000 miles apart from her. They're wondering why when their wife leans over and says, hey, is tonight going to be, night,
Right.
that instantly their first impulse is to hide, is to shrink because they're ugly. They're not attractive. They're too fat to be loved. Like these stories, right? So you got the stories you're born into, you got the stories you were told. And then those stories become over time the stories you tell yourself. And so when you're a kid, dad tells you you're too pudgy. Mom tells you you're too lazy. Your teacher tells you you're never going to figure out math. And then when you're 30, I don't know how to do math. I'm just going to put all my money in Bitcoin because that sounds like the smart thing to do because I don't understand how finance works, right? I'm going to, you know what? I'm always going to be fat. I'm always going to be dumb. It's easier just to go to pornography, just to dial it into my computer than actually sit down across a table from my wife and say, hey, here's what I need. Here's what I want to try. Here's what I think would be fun. Are you in with me? Could we look at our sexual relationship as an adventure, not as a game of, chicken? Like we do this, and we don't have the language, and we've told ourselves these stories over and over and over, and they just become our lives. And that's how these things get passed on generation after generation after generation. And then there's the stories of the things we actually did. Like I hurt people growing up. I was a loudmouth, brash idiot, and I've done stupid things throughout my entire life. And so I've got to take ownership of the stuff I've done, the people I've hurt, the choices I've made that got me in trouble, the stupid tattoos that I probably shouldn't have got, right? So I've done things throughout my life. I got to own those stories. And then I've got to ask myself this one gnarly, terrifying question that every person at one point or another has to ask themselves, which is, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
What comes next? Am I just going to accept that this is the way this is? As we talked about at the beginning, am I just going to I'm just going to get on this track. I'm going to go to college, get a degree I don't like. I'm going to go into debt with money I don't have. I'm going to get a job that is fine. That's going to give me a semi-fancy version of a used car and a semi-nice house and a semi-nice neighborhood. Is that just going to be my life?
Yeah.
Or am I going to unplug from the matrix and do something completely different with this one tiny little reckless, crazy life that God gave me?
Amen, bro. Amen. Hey, guys, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Every man needs to have a bunch of it is writtens in their life. When the attacks come, you better be ready. To help you get started, I want to give you a free guide to get 10 scriptures that will have you ready to fight like a lion. Along with the guide, there are a series of messages designed to come alongside you during your mission of committing these verses to memory. So get started by visiting thelionwithin.us. That's thelionwithin.us and unlock your free guide to fight like a lion. So, John, got to know. We're going to unpack this a little bit further around those stories, because I talk about this a lot with our guys within our community too, particularly around two areas: the stories we tell ourselves. I think I want to talk about that a little bit more, but also specifically to men, because I mean, we serve Christian men here at Delony Within Us. The power we have in our tongues and what we say to our wives and our children, I don't think we understand quite to the degree that we should what that power is. Because I mean, as the man, I say a lot of times, we can set the thermostat right. We set that temperature in the house. Does it get hotter when you come through that door, or is it level out? And I just love to get your insight and your input, or to speak to our men that are listening right now about that power they have, the way they speak. Then we can talk about the words that we speak to ourselves.
Yeah. I'll hit that one head on, and then I'll hit the men listening where it hurts. Head on. Yeah, dude. We, as men across the board, Christian men included, we think so little of ourselves. We think our only value is our advice or our strong backs. That's it. And we have no models. We have no picture of sitting with our wives, sitting with our kids, and not trying to solve all their problems for them as though they're stupid or as they're dumb or as they're less educated than us. We feel so insecure when our wives say, "Hey, I was at work today, man, and this boss is an idiot." And instead of going, "I hate that for you. I'm glad you're here. I don't think you're an idiot," we say, "Well, if my boss said that, I'd tell them they needs to be." Right? And we start, and we imply with our words, "You're stupid. You're too dumb to figure out how to do this, wife or kids. We'll do it for you." We do it with our adult kids. We do it with our middle school kids. We do it with, we just, because I think we're trying to help. We really are. But we do it because we are so insecure in silence. We're so insecure with the power of our presence. That's number one. The second thing is there's a whole generation of men who learned I can be really abusive with my language. And they take all their thoughts and all their feelings and they shove it down inside their chest, and they become nuclear reactors. And my wife calls it Sunday afternoon dad. I can be really violent in my home with my silence. Everybody in my house can know they need to tiptoe around me and make sure that they don't walk by the television. I got my feet propped up, and they don't ask for snacks or ask if they can do anything, because dad's got just pulsing with his heat. And then when my wife says, "Hey, are you all right?" Then I go, "Oh, what do you mean? Am I all right? Why are you always nagging me? I'm fine. I haven't said anything." Yeah, I know, man, but I am communicating to everyone within the nuclear blast of my radius of my blast. Stay away, stay away, stay away. Right. And I think men can either over communicate and just never shut up, or they under communicate, and that rage and anger and frustration just spews out everywhere. Here's what happened this weekend. This happened to me. We were putting together, my son and I. We got my daughter a trampoline for Christmas, and then I promptly went in a hole to write a new book and disappeared from humanity. And I'm busy and been on the road. And my wife said, "I bet this goes up in April." And I got on me, and she was, and my son has been asking, "Hey, Dad, let's put up the trampoline. I got to do stuff, son. I can't do it. Hey, Dad, let's put up the trampoline. Let's put up the trampoline." And so Sunday, I'm walking out. I got my ruck bag on, and I just need to go for a long walk by myself. And my son comes bebopping in, and he says, "Hey, Dad, let's put up a trampoline." And I was like, "Fine, you win, Hank. Let's go do it." And he immediately said, "Whoa, Dad, we don't have to do it today. We don't have to do it." And he heard it. He saw it on me. And I was like, "Nope, we're doing it. You keep nagging about it." Dude, had nothing to do with him. And I did it the whole time. I was grumpy and making my faces, the whole thing, man. And Monday, when he got home from school, he came in, "Hey, Dad, how's it going?" I said, "I need you over here right now." And he's like, What? And he immediately got tense. And he came over, and I put my hands on both sides of his face, and I held his face for an awkward few seconds to where I could feel him getting kind of tense. And I said, "Hey, I was a real jerk yesterday. I was grumpy and frustrated with stuff that has nothing to do with you. The best part of my day yesterday was when you came in and said, 'Can we put up the trampoline?' And I got to watch how incredible you were at helping me with the bolts and helping me pull these springs on this thing and helping us get this thing moved. And all of this was for your little sister." And so I love the care. So I apologized to him, told him I was wrong. But again, I didn't say anything ugly to him. But my silence communicated everything, right? Yeah. And so I think men have to learn when to be quiet and just be in our wife's presence, be in our kids' presence, and know that our presence is enough. And we have to know when we're grumpy, don't make our kids carry that. Don't make our spouses carry that. That's for us to deal with. And most of us need to go do a hard workout or go for a long walk or go for a run or call some buddies or go do something.
Right.
But not just sit at home and set a forest fire in our house and get mad at our kids because they're smoking.
Yeah. I mean, that's so true. I mean, and I'm
All right, you're asking all my soapbox questions, man. This is like the John Delony soapbox podcast.
No, this is good though, man, because this is real. And this is what I think this is why guys tune in every week because they know they're going to get that real vulnerability. That's what we want to talk about. Because I had the same thing, man. Like I have a 12-year-old, 10-year-old, 19-month-old, and a 4-month-old. So it's a little bit crazy. And then we got chicken. Bro, it's crazy, right? I mean, we got chickens, we got dogs, we got cats, we got now, and there's a mouse that showed up at our house, like he's in a cage. Like I didn't even know this. Like apparently we this is what we do, right? So, but I find myself, man, like I have this other job, then I'm doing the Lion, all these stressors, trying to make sure we serve the guests, serve the community, and the people who get the worst, the suckiest part of me, bro, is them. It's like my 12-year-old or my 10-year-old or my beautiful wife, and I'm finding myself, but I've challenged myself lately to be like the chief apologizer in my house. Like I want them to hear their dad say, "I'm sorry," more than anything. I want to be the one that leads with that. And unfortunately, I have to say that a lot because I'm not finding good ways to, or either I don't take enough time to transition from coming out of the Lion or coming out of my other job to go into that, right? And I think that's just as men, man, we have to be aware of that, bro. So I'm so glad you brought that up because so many people, when they hear people like you, they're like, "Oh, he never messes up." I'm like, no, man, we all have we make these mistakes.
I've found that the key for me is intentionality away from the situation. What do I mean by that? Every single Sunday night, my wife and I get together, and it's a strange foreplay for her, but we go over the calendar of the upcoming week, and we go over the budget. And sometimes I'm not so great with the budget, but we go over the calendar every week, and we talk about meal planning. And that gives her a sense of peace that is so profound. Every Tuesday of my life, no matter what, my son and I go to Waffle House. And I'm a big lunatic about eating right and all that, but we go to Waffle House, man, and we make it happen. But we do it every single Tuesday. And what that does for us is it creates every week we go is another centimeter of a concrete foundation. And over the last year and a half, that foundation's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I started this when he was in 6th grade. He's halfway through 7th grade now. But that foundation's getting higher so that when I do screw up inevitably, like I did this weekend, I've got a relationship with him that's not out of the blue that I can look him in the eye and say, "I screwed this up and I'm sorry." And he understands me relationally. I'm not just this spaceship that lands in the house and then takes back off to work every week.
Right.
And so the intentionality is often not in the moment. It's in these other moments when I can create some intentional time of connectivity with my wife, with my kids, with my friends, with my colleagues, so that my son gets to see, "Oh, I know who that guy is." So when I say I'm sorry, it means something.
Yeah.
It's not another performance.
Man, that's so good. I mean, and one thing I've done since starting the Lion, being an entrepreneur, I'm bringing my kids more and more into these conversations too about, hey, share my calendar. Absolutely. Like, hey, like Chloe's my oldest. Like, all right, Chloe, here's what my calendar looks like. This is really what I'm up against. So, and I found by doing that, it's opened up. She's coming to my room sometimes at 9:30 at night and be like, "Hey, can we talk?" And it's just, I know if I can just keep her where she'll come and have those conversations, man, it's just, we're going to be okay. Right. I just got to make sure that.
Can I tell you this?
Yeah.
This, you're onto it. And I wish I had known this 10 years ago. It was from the great, Dr. Gabor Mate out of Canada. He's one of the most brilliant trauma, physicians and psychiatrists in the world. But here's something that as a dad, I've never focused on until recently. And this comes from his writing. Said, has it ever occurred to you that if you want your kids to spend time with you, that you can work on being likable, work on being somebody that another human would want to actually spend time with?
Right.
And as I read through, I was like, oh man, maybe lecturing every second of the day, or every time there's a bag on the floor, I turn it into some obnoxious life lesson, or every time my son doesn't brush his teeth in the right way, in the right order. What if I just try to be likable? Then what I can't tell you the switch in my house. It doesn't mean I'm not holding my kids accountable. It means I don't nag them. It means I'm not complaining all the time. It means I am trying to find joy in my own house and warmth. I'm trying to be a center of warmth, not a center of this is the way it's going to be. And this is, I got a rule book no, it's stupid. That's stupid. They need somebody that's going to say, hey man, I'm a safe place. I will always be a safe place for you. No matter where you find yourself on the planet, you can always come here and I'm going to be waiting for you with a hug. And that's a totally different proposition. And I'm telling you, man, it has been night and day in my house since I stopped trying to be right and be the drill sergeant. And I started trying to be a likable guy. Man, my discipline is as high as it always is. My expectations are as high as they always are. Man, we have a lot more fun in my house and we have a lot more smiles. And my daughter wants a lot more to do with me because I feel safe. My son wants a lot more to do with me because I feel safe. It's been a radical shift in my house.
And it's so important. I mean, you got to have some fun in the house too. I mean, one thing, my wife, she's going to be so turned red because I'm getting ready to share this, but I'm just going to share it because I feel like this is what I need to be real with my listeners, man. You want to get my family going? All I got to do is walk up to my girls and say, pull my finger. And like that just immediately lowers the level, right? And particularly if I rip one, like they all fall out laughing. My wife's rolling her eyes, but it just in that moment, she can't stand it. But little silly things like that, man. I just try to find times just to have a little bit of fun. You know, don't be that dictator all the time. Yeah, there's a time to teach for sure. There's a time to teach, but I think maybe it's Rachel. She talks about that's more talk than talk. You know, and actually, you know, be there with them. They want that time, but when you're with that time, don't just be hammering them the whole time, man. Have some fun with your kids.
Here's what you'll find when you're a warm, safe place to go. Then people want to be near you, and when they want to be near you, then they want to ask what you think about things. Right. You're not having to chase down your kids and your spouse to give them your wisdom and advice. They'll seek you. People didn't seek Jesus because he was running around yelling at everybody. They were after him because he clearly had something inside of him that they didn't have. And I want that. I want whatever that is, man. Yeah. This guy speaks truth to power and spends his time laughing and hanging out with homeless people. Like, I want to know that guy. Yeah. That's a totally different proposition than someone just screaming and hollering at people. That's how you get demigods, not that's not how you get people of peace.
Amen, brother. Amen. Hey guys, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Does your men's group feel stale? Is men's ministry at your church simply going through the motions? If the answer is yes, the Lion Within Us is ready to give you the kickstart you need to get moving in the right direction. We have a host of topics from marriage, parenting, finances, and leadership that I am delivering myself to help your team start doing the work God has called you to do. So I'm ready to come serve your groups in person. And to get started, visit thelionwithin.us/speaking. That's thelionwithin.us/speaking. There you can contact us directly or share the link with your church leadership to get started. Again, that's thelionwithin.us/speaking. And I look forward to helping others unleash the lion within. So John, one thing to talk about too, so far is the stories we tell ourselves, man. I did a whole podcast. It was a solo episode where I did talk about, what the story, I actually called it, the words we say to ourselves, and talk about that negative condemnation that we always have. We're just speaking those negative things and how important it is to stop that as men. And I don't know if it was in your book or listening to your podcast, but I started using it about 2 weeks ago. And maybe it was in your book where you just said, you wrote something about when you have that negative thought, you literally say the words, nope. And you just like, nope, not going to have it. And you just keep walking. And man, I've started doing that. And bro, it works. Like I've been able to find it. I'm able to stop that thought and then move on, replace it with something that is true. Cause usually it's just a doggone lie that comes across me anyway. Say no, move forward. So man, give us a little more insight on those words we say to ourselves. Cause this is what, from my community, the guys that I talk with, this is what they all struggle with is that negative, I'm not good enough. I mean, every guy We're all looking for respect. I totally get that, but we all feel it's that insecurity that we're just not enough.
Yeah, man. I often say I talk to myself in ways that if I ever saw somebody talking to the woman at the Walmart counter in the way that I talk to myself, I'd probably go to jail, man.
Yeah, right.
I would end up, and you know what? My wife and my boss would bail me out, and they'd have a smile on their face, right? Because you did the right thing. And I talk to myself like that all the time. I heard a comedian recently say, you're walking out of the house and you run down to your car and it's raining and you hop in your car and you realize you've left your wallet inside or something. I remember the story. And your immediate response is, and he has a lot of expletives, but you idiot, you're so stupid every time. And then you go back and you get your wallet and you're just beating yourself up the whole way. He said, hey, that's not you. That's your dad. He said, that's not bad self-talk. That's just a memory. That's your football coach. That's the way we were all raised, that you're weak in your wimps. And so we have to beat you up so that you can toughen up.
Yeah.
And here's a fascinating insight I had. So I'm a big mixed martial arts guy, big MMA guy.
I just started BJJ ourselves, man. We love it.
There you go. Awesome, man. I'm so out of shape I can't even touch my toes. I did it for years, man. I think I'd get wiped out by a middle school kid now. But there was a team back in the day called Chute-a-Box, Chute, and they were out of Brazil, and it had Vanderlei Silva and Shogun, all these just assassins. I think Vanderlei Silva's nickname was the Axe Murderer. Nobody wanted to fight him. He fought over in Pride in Japan. Was just wild. And they all talked about their practices. And you know what their practices were? Fist fights. They just got in fist fights. They just fought all the time. And what they thought was, we are going to fight all the time so hard with the best fighters on the planet that by the time we get in the ring, it's going to be nothing. It's going to be easy. And that actually worked for like 3 to 5 years. There was a season when nobody could touch those guys. And then those guys can't brush their teeth anymore. Their shoulders and their knees don't work, and you sneeze on them wrong and they go unconscious because they've got their punch drunk, right? Their chins don't work. And what they've found is this idea that I'm going to toughen you up by screaming at you, by hitting you, it just breaks you down over time. And the greatest mentors are those who walk beside. Yes, there's some moments of accountability. Yes, there's some moments of strong, hard discipline. Of course. But the idea that I have to assassinate you to make you strong is just madness. It's wrong. It's false. And we think we have a generation of kids who are weak and wimpy because we aren't just being tough enough on it. I think it's backwards. I think we have a group of kids that have completely checked out because that doesn't work. They're desperate for adults to be adults. They're tired of adults screaming at everybody and everything. And so all the way back out, I have to choose to decide that I'm worth talking positively to, that I'm worth treating as good as I treat my coworker, that I'm worth is treating as well as I treat that guy that comes into my church building that's weeping, that says I need help. I'll stop everything I'm doing. I'll put all my stuff down. And I'll hug that guy. And I'll hold his face in my hands and say, I love you. God loves you. Come sit down. Let's figure this thing out. I deserve that level of love and respect and trust too. And it starts with me. And nobody in the world is going to give me something that I refuse to even give myself. And so I got to start with me. And that often starts with stopping the stories. And this was a big light bulb for me. Hopefully it is for your listeners. Rumination, worry, having those imaginary conversations with people that you're never going to actually have. If I talk to President Biden, I'd tell him, shut up. You wouldn't say any of that stuff. You would say none of those things. None of you would. If I saw Trump, I'd tell him. You wouldn't tell him anything. You wouldn't tell your boss. I'm going to tell my wife that you're not going to say any of those things. You're just going to fire your body up, dump adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream, just like Drano. And eventually you're going to eat through all the pipes in your system. You're going to burn a hole through your insides by having these imaginary fights, this false sense of power and superiority that you conjure up while you're washing your hair in the shower because nobody's around, and you're driving and your grip on the wheel is so tight. I'm going to show that. All you're doing is choosing. I am choosing to die younger. I'm choosing to die of an aneurysm of a heart attack. And by the way, the guy that you just cut off, that could just cut you off, he doesn't know how mad you are. He doesn't care. He's on his way to wherever he is. So your anger is for nothing.
Right.
And so I've got to decide, I'm going to start walking through the world a little more peaceful. I'm going to start working through the world a little more joyful. And that means when I start these imaginary conversations, when I start the fear mongering, what if the bank system collapses? What if the Bitcoin implodes and all the banks fall apart? You know what? When that happens, it's going to be very different than you think. Your neighbor's going to come over and try to shoot you for your water. Like, it's going to be a whole different ball game than we plan. So how about we just don't spend time on that? I don't have, as my buddy says, I don't have a meteorite plan. If we get hit by a meteorite and half the world gets wiped out, I'm gonna figure that one out then. I don't have food stored underground in my house for when that I just don't. And so I am going to consciously be aware of the stories that I'm looping through my head day in, day out, day in, day out. And when I start getting sideways, my wife, she'll just roll her eyes, but I'll be walking through the living room and I'll just holler, nope. And I'll just keep walking, and she just knows there he is talking to himself again. But I'm going to stop that conversation in its track. And here's the other side of that that's really important. You have to have another narrative that follows up.
Right.
I think it's the great Adler, one of the founding fathers of psychology said, I thought if I took away my clients' depression and anxiety, that I would make them well. And I didn't. I just made them empty. Because anxiety and depression are our body's way of coping with a crazy world around us. And so we have to have something that goes into that space. You can't just pull out the bad stuff. You got to put in good stuff. So I've got another story. When I start thinking about my son just needs to, I'll yell, nope. And then I'll think, golly, I won the lottery with that kid.
Yeah.
He is working hard on his grades. And I will spend a second or two saying something positive, and we'll roll there, man. And it just changes everything.
Yeah, it does, man. It does so much. And
I don't know how you did this, Chris. You're like, man, this is like Delony's soapbox hour, man. You're asking all of my hot button issues that just drive me crazy about the world we've created for ourselves.
Well, bro, I mean, and the last
well
one,
done, man. Well done.
Well, thank you, man. I mean, I really put a lot of prayer and time into trying to make sure I serve you well and to serve your listeners. And I know one area that I was hoping we could just touch on briefly, because I know we're running short on time, is around getting connected. Because that one section in your book where you talk about getting connected, and I tie that directly to community. That's what I'm big about here at the Line Within Us. That's why we built this community, because these guys that are in our community, man, it's incredible. I mean, I'm seeing legit change. We're talking about legit things that are really happening in our lives, and the importance of that, to be able to have that place where you can go be real. And quite frankly, I don't see that in church. We bring the fake you at church, and fake you's doing just fine, man. I want to talk to the real you. Like, let's talk about the real stuff. And this is the community for me. That's what it's all about. So maybe just preach a little bit on why it's so important to get connected with others.
If you think back to about 4,000 years ago, and you're walking through the plains of North Florida, and you go to sleep at night, and you wake up in the morning and your tribe had left you. Your tribe just took off. They packed up all the gear. They packed up all the animals. They packed up the women and children. They left. You were probably going to die. You weren't going to make it, because you were going to get exposed. You're going to get eaten. You're going to run out of water. You're going to run out of food. You were probably going to die. Every ounce of energy in your body, every chemical would be geared towards one thing: find your tribe. And your body wouldn't let you sleep very deeply. It wouldn't get that great deep sleep, that restorative REM sleep, because it couldn't afford to, because you were all you had. You were always you were now just a security department. There wasn't somebody else staying awake while you slept. It was never good. You're not going to mate. There's no reason for sexuality and intimacy. You're trying to not die. You're not going to eat deep, restorative, nourishing foods. You're going to grab a Twinkie and Taco Bell, because your body's craving cheap calories to get you to the next moment, the next moment, the next moment. It doesn't have time to digest a big, healthy steak or a good salad or whatever it is. And so when we step back and look at our lives, we've created the loneliest generation in human history ever. And if you're like me, you've got friendships of 20 and 30 years, and you've got 14-mile text message exchanges that's full of hilarious memes, and you are completely and totally alone. Or if you're like me, you can be completely alone at your kitchen table, surrounded by your family at dinner. Or you can be completely alone next to a woman who you know loves you, but you know what's going on inside her head, and she has no idea how lonely you feel and how unhappy you are with your sex life, how unhappy you are with your faith, whatever's going on in your life, how scared you are about your job. She doesn't know you. You're completely alone.
Mm-hmm.
And when your body recognizes that you're alone, it sounds every signal that it's got because it's trying to get your attention because it knows you're going to die. And if you back all the way out, now you've got this whole neuroscience community circling up with these words like neuroception and where your body's scanning for threats. Here's the deal. Our bodies are co-regulated. They are designed from the inside out for one thing: connectivity to other people, real humans in a real room saying, how are you? I see you and I still love you. That is the baseline, dude. And we have just completely taken that away. We've completely pulled that out of human existence and said, actually you can just sit behind the screen and you can do all of the things in life right here. And then Netflix knows you better than your friends. They just tell you what series to watch next. And if that doesn't work, you can just Google whatever you want to see on the computer and grab a drink and go to bed. And that's what we're calling life. And so, man, there is none long-term behavior change without getting connected to other people. And so I think here's what I've become fond of saying. They gave my granddad cigarettes when he was 8, 9, and 10. Back in the 20s. I mean, they gave him cigarettes because it calmed kids down. And they realized in short order, hey, that's not very smart. We're going to kill all these kids. And then all those people grew up to be smokers. All of our grandparents were smokers until they quit. They had to look in the mirror and say, hey, this is going to kill us. I think we are there with loneliness. Yep. We have a generation of people who've got nobody except for our friends on our imaginary friends on the computer. We have to look in the mirror and say, I've got to do the hard work. And it's miserable work. It's the worst, Chris, the worst. We have to. I have to look in the mirror and say, I don't want to die young. I want my grandkids to know their granddad. I want to be a person of integrity, which means I've got to quit smoking, which in this case means I got to get some friends, some guys that I share life with, that I do life with, that I'm weird with, that I tell my joke and they don't think it's funny, or they tell their joke and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so stupid. That want to put country music on in the car, whatever crap, whatever's going on. I've got to go down that path. Otherwise, I'm choosing to die a death of despair. And I don't think our families deserve that. And we certainly.
No, you're right. And it takes intentionality, guys. I mean, you can't just wake up and this stuff happens. You really have to lean in. And sometimes for me, that's why I started in line within this. I recognize this. I needed to be around more men to be able to pour into to me just as much as I can help them. But man, guys, if it's not there, like, start it. I mean, get it going. If you don't, if you need that small group, whatever it is, like, lean in and make that stuff happen. So, John, that's incredible advice. Thank you so much for that.
No, thank you, man. Thanks for calling that out. And you actually put your money where your mouth is. You started a group, man. I just run my mouth about it. And hey, again, same as just a minute ago, writing this new book, I was about halfway through it and I went and checked myself into a hotel for a week. I'm kind of a miserable person when I get into writing mode. And I went to a hotel just to get this thing out, and I kind of work odd hours. And about halfway through that stay, I had this real scary moment. Like, oh, I'm completely alone again. I did it to myself again. I just found myself traveling the country and running around and going to kid thing and going to wife thing and going to kid thing and going to work and doing whatever. I got nobody again. I did it again. And so this back half of the new book was, hey, I'm not talking at people anymore. I'm trying to go spelunking to see what happened to me. How did this happen to me? I'm the guy. I'm the loneliness guy. How did it happen to me? And here's my path out, man. So kudos to you for actually putting your money where your mouth is and starting a group, man. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, thank you, brother. It's been a blessing. It definitely has. Well, before you go, man, let's do a quick lightning round. We always like to do this at the very end of our show. Couple quick questions. They're just fun stuff, man. It's just to let our listeners know a little bit about you. But if you're willing to play, we'll make this a fast lightning for us.
All right, let's dance. Let's do it.
All right. So what's your favorite food, man?
Favorite food, man. Texas Mexican food.
Ooh, nice. Tex-Mex. How about a hobby?
Man, I've been playing guitar for about 35 years. It's one of my favorite things in the world.
Nice. What's something maybe you're struggling with right now?
Oh man. I'm struggling with, I'm an introvert by nature, and I spent my entire career, especially the last decade, trying to disappear from the internet. I wanted to help people behind closed doors.
Yep.
And so now I'm getting recognized in airport bathrooms and stuff. So just recognizing this new job I freely chose comes with a lot of exposure. And so it's just, my wife's getting asked about, me at doctor's appointments. It's just changed our family in wonderful ways, right? And It's also just a new season. So just figuring out how to do that.
I feel you. So what if you look back over last year, what did you spend too much time doing?
I spent too much time letting other people decide what my priorities in my life were going to be.
Mm.
And I let them own my calendar. I let them own my philosophy statements. I let them own my priorities. And I committed at the end of hitting send on this thing. That has to end. And I've already seen my life shift for the better.
Good for you. Good for you. Last two real quick. So what's a new habit you want to create, or maybe a new habit you've recently created?
Man. So, geez, we could get on a rabbit hole here. I have a bad relationship with food, always have. And it was in this space, spending some time with the guys from Mind Pump and with Dr. Lane Norton, who are two giants in the health and fitness space. One of the Mind Pump guys, Sal, told me something, just private conversation, said, hey, you can't hate yourself into a better body. If you go to the gym and work out because you think you're fat and disgusting and gross, you will always hit a wall. There is no way through that. If you go to the gym and say, man, I am worth an hour to feel better, to look better, to be my best self, to be 40 years from now, I can roll around on the ground with my grandkids. That's sustainable. So shifting why I work out every day, I'm kind of obsessive about it, but why? And I realized I was doing it because I hated myself, not because I cared about myself so much. So that was number one. The other one is I just had a bad relationship with food and swinging from, I've got a kind of an ironclad willpower. So I'd go from, I could knock weight off real quick. And this time when I worked on my new book, I talked with Lane and he said, hey, I love snacks when I'm writing. I'm surrounded by snacks, like a middle schooler who just has his parents' debit card and they can just go crazy. I got gummy candies everywhere. It's pretty ridiculous. And he said, why don't you use this opportunity to not beat yourself up, but take in the extra calories and just lift heavy this time. When you go lift heavy, use it, take advantage of those calories. And on the back end, you're gonna be a lot stronger. And so now I took that advice and now I'm about 15 pounds up from when I like walking around. And man, walking that back off in my 40s is very different than walking that back off in my 30s. So, the habit I'm trying to create is to be a lot more diligent with the food I'm putting in my mouth.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, last one for you, John. So what do you hope the listeners out there today, if they remember one thing, what would that be?
That they're worth being loved. That they're not a burden.
Amen, brother. Amen. Well,
we're Dr. Well.
Man, I've thoroughly enjoyed this time with you. Where do you want them to go to get your books, to connect with you? I know you do a lot of stuff on Instagram, but just where you want to point them.
I still don't understand how Instagram works, man. I'm like, I didn't have any in social media before I took them. I'm still trying to figure it out. I think things are hilarious that my wife does not think are as funny. Anyway, so you can find me at John Delony, Delony. And you can go to johndelony.com for books and things like that. Or they're on Amazon. They're everywhere. And you can catch me at my show. I've got a show that comes out 3 times a week. It's a caller podcast. Think of old Dr. Phil or, old Love Connection or something like that. But it's people calling in with real problems, and we are walking through day by day. And I also host Dave Ramsey show with him every once in a while, talking about money and stuff like that. But you can find that the Dr. John Delony show wherever they've got YouTube and podcasts and all that.
That's awesome. We'll make sure that stuff is synced up. And I will tell you guys, the Dr. Delony show is played in my house 3 times a week because I hear it from Rebecca. So, man.
Sorry, man.
Man. This is great. But thank you so much for joining us today, brother. Anything else you'd like to share?
I just want to thank you for your hospitality, man. You asked me some questions I haven't been asked in a while, and it was you asked them all at the same time. So I appreciate you letting me preach for a little bit.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
All right. Blessings to you, brother. See ya.
Listen, guys, our habits matter. They're either making you better or they're holding you back. So if you're feeling stuck and you need some ideas on how to create some new habits that's going to make an impact, I want to help you out. So I outlined a guide that will give you 9 habits. That's 9 that will help you grow spiritually, mentally, and physically. So to get your free guide, head over to thelionwithin.us/habits. That's thelionwithin.us/habits. And start creating the habits you need to be the leader God intends you to be. So, guys, I told you. I tried to warn you, but as usual, you don't listen to me. So here you had to listen for yourself. I get it. But hopefully you got a lot out of that, because I know I sure did. Hanging out and spending time with Dr. John Delony, it's incredible. I mean, I still can't believe sitting here recording this episode with him, that this is real sometimes. I mean, we're really able to have these conversations, because not that it's just he's got a big figure and he does all these things out there with so many people, but because it's so impactful and it aligns directly to God's word. A lot of the insights and advice that he gave. Because I know this stuff helps you, because it's helping me. It's helping me with my relationship with my wife and my children, prayerfully with the people within the line, within this community. So go back and take the time to really understand. If you skipped over this one, this may be one you want to listen to at one time speed. This may be one you want to slow it down to really get that insight, because you need to be thinking through, okay, how can I take these areas that he's talked about here and actually implement and start making some small minor changes? And he talked about some small minor things, guys. This is not big overhauls you would have to do, but these little bitty changes do make an impact. So I pray you go back and you check that out. Now, if you go back to the verse of the week this week, where we talk about 1 John 4:7-8, and again, that talks a lot about love. What I want you to think about is, what does love look like in your daily walk? Okay. Again, for a Christian man, love is a verb. It's something that we have to walk out. It's something that we show. Okay. It's not just a feeling. We have to actually show this out. So for you in your relationships, maybe the relationship with your wife, maybe the relationship with your kids, or how about this, the relationship with your coworkers, or that guy's Dr. John talked about, the relationship with that guy who cut you off in traffic today, right? Can you love that person? What would that look like if you could actually tune that in and tune out the hate and the anger and the rage, start tuning into love? So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Share this out with others. I've talked to so many guys lately within the line, within us, within our community. And the biggest encouragement I'm hearing from guys is that they're actually sharing this podcast out. I recently talked with one of our newest members. His name is Ted. About he's texting it out to 20 guys, some of these episodes, because he knows it's going to impact them. It's going to help them. So take the time. If all you do is just hit share this episode and you send that out, guys, that makes a big impact. If you would consider leaving a rating and review, that would help for sure. And the biggest thing we want you guys to do is go check out the community. And Dr. John and I, we talked at the very end about the importance of connecting with others. And I know it's hard. You know why I know it's hard? Because it's hard for me. So we built this community within the line within us. And guys, all I can tell you is that it's making an impact. It's incredible to see the way these guys are leaning into each other. We're bringing the real issues. We're helping each other. We're serving each other. We're even planning some live events later this year. So if you want to get in on any of these things, guys, you got to get in the line within us community. I'm telling you, it's growing. It's going to be resources there that are going to help you in your journey, whether you want to be a better husband, a better business owner, a better employee, a better dad. Okay, maybe you want to take care of your health better, right? Maybe you want to just start. What do you need to start doing to start plugging in the word and clearing your mind better? We're going to be talking about all these things. We have these resources here to help you. So check out thelionwithin.us, start your 30-day free trial, and plug in. You have nothing to lose. Jump in for 30 days. If it doesn't serve you, bounce out. It's fine. But I just want to connect with you and give you an opportunity to see the wonderful things that we're doing, because as John mentioned here today, you can't do this thing called life alone. We have built a society where we're all so disconnected. We're alone. We don't want to talk to people. We don't have ways and outlets to really release all this negative that we have. Guys, I'm telling you, we've built this community to help you do that. So I pray you take the time, check it out, see if it would serve you, and just reach out to us. Okay, just reach out to us and let's have a conversation there within the community. So again, hope you have a great one. Come back on Friday. I got some good tips. I guarantee you're going to help you. Some of these tips you probably haven't thought about before, or maybe you have thought about some of these tips, but you haven't applied them in a while. So come on back on Friday for our Fun Friday. We're going to unpack some fun things there. So get after it, okay? Get after it. Stand strong and show that love. You know what's coming next, right? It's time to unleash the lion within.